As we're in the middle of March Madness, one of the most historic college basketball games of all time actually took place about 71 years ago, or close to it. And no one really knows anything about it until now. A new book out details what's called The Secret Game, and the author is here via Skype from Durham, North Carolina, Scott Ellsworth. He's a historian, also a professor as well. And Scott, I have to tell you, I love sports. A lot of people do. And this game really wasn't known by a great majority of Americans, and it really does kind of give you a peek into what it was like back in the 40s when it comes to race relations, and really the first chance for whites and blacks to start playing sports together.
Absolutely. And, this is the game that should not have happened. It was, this happened in 1944. This is 10 years before the Civil Rights Movement, 3 years before Jackie Robinson desegregates Major League Baseball. But in the South, in the segregated South, there was a secret, illegal, integrated college basketball game held in a locked gym on a Sunday morning in Durham.
Yeah, what's so amazing about it is you go through your book and the whole story. Obviously, it took a lot of research, and we'll get into that in a moment. But just as the story goes itself, and we don't want to give up too much, but what's so amazing about it is the team from Duke, which was a team of medical students, which had beat the Duke varsity and really was considered to be, if not the best, one of the best teams in the country, played the school, the all-black college school, in this locked gymnasium, and they got beat they got creamed, really, the best way of putting it. They got knocked out.
Well, they did, and one reason they got knocked out is because the coach of North Carolina College was John McClendon. John McClendon is one of the great innovators in all of college basketball. He was James Naismith's last student at the University of Kansas, but he had developed this new high-speed, fast break, this full-court pressure defense, and a whole new way of approaching basketball. In fact, his team that year was the highest-scoring college basketball team in the entire United States.
Like a run-and-gun type of offense before it became the popular phrase in the 80s and 90s. I have to ask you about the research on all this because obviously you're a historian, you're an author, a professor, something obviously you're very interested in. But with a game like this behind locked doors in a gymnasium that most people who follow sports closely had never even heard about, this took some significant investigation on your part to be able to come up with some of this stuff. How many of the players are still alive? Are any of them still alive? Was there anybody else, witnesses that were there that maybe a few got to sneak into the gymnasium and watch this game?
Well, I got very lucky in finding out about it, and it took about 20 years of research, to tell you the truth. But there are two players that are still alive. Both are on the Duke medical team. It's a military medical team. And but I spoke with everybody over the course of the past 20 years who was either at the game or saw the game or was a part of it. So I had a good core of people who were there at the time, and these were just wonderful folks in their 80s and 90s. Almost all of them are gone now, but who really opened up to me and told me the story.
Obviously, this was at the height of racial tensions in the country. But what it also shows, and I think we're hearing this from other stories as well, from not only in sports, but just throughout the society, is that the majority, or at least a lot of people in this country, really felt there should not be the segregation that existed. For example, the Duke players borrowed cars, took unusual routes to get to the gymnasium. And you've heard some of these other stories when it came to Jackie Robinson and other people who broke color barriers about how a lot of people in this country really wanted to get the sides, to get the races together, but they had to circumnavigate a lot of societal, scary things that were going on in society, really, to be able to make this happen. And this was true in this game as well.
Absolutely. You're exactly right. That was one of the things that really surprised me about this. In the South in those days, if you crossed the color line, you took great risks and could put your life in danger, or certainly your freedom. But there was a whole generation of people in the South, black, white as well as black, who were starting to push back against segregation, taking chances. And this is really the forgotten precursor to the Civil Rights Movement. When the Civil Rights Movement comes 10 years later, it stands on the shoulders of these people who were already pushing back and trying to create a new and better country.
Scott, we're seeing the aftermath now, 71 years later, but what was the immediate aftermath then? Was this pretty much a secret? Obviously, the game was a secret. That's the title of the book. But, was there anything that kind of maybe came out of this, that sprung from this after this game?
Well, it certainly changed the lives of everyone who was in this game. It changed their minds. Dave Hubble was one of the white Southern players on the Duke team, and he said that it really got him to think about life differently after he played the game with these guys, got to know them afterwards as well, too. There were some repercussions that happened for Coach McClendon, but one thing that also happened is McClendon was so ahead of his time in creating this modern basketball, but the word got out that there was this new kind of ball being played at North Carolina College, and all that summer, white players from the Tar Heels, from the University of North Carolina, would sneak over to North Carolina College in Durham to get pickup games with these black players. And they later brought these new innovations all around the country.
Did any of these guys stay in touch afterwards? Did they reconnect at any time over the years once race relations improved significantly? Or were they pretty much segregated throughout the rest of their lives?
Well, they were all changed by this. I did have a reunion of a number of them once some time ago. But, Dave Hubble, after he played in this game, and he had been on the Duke varsity, he later helped to desegregate a medical convention in Florida. He had an African-American tennis partner for the rest of his life. So he very much ended up in life in a different place than he had begun.
Very cool. Scott Ellsworth, hey, really fast question. Is it going to be made into a movie? Because this has movie rights written all over it.
Well, you'll have to talk to my agent, but yes, absolutely, that's the plan.
All right, Scott Ellsworth, great job. We look forward to getting other people to have a chance to read this book. The book is called The Secret Game. It's out now. You can see it about the secret game in North Carolina back in 1944 on a Sunday where a white team and a black team made history. Unfortunately, most people didn't know about it until now. Now you can too. Scott, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Adam. I really appreciate being on your show.